welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian, thanks for joining me. Glad you found your way to the channel, whether it was a new video notification or because you clicked the link somewhere. Welcome one and all. This video is a bit different from most of my others because I'm going to be talking about a Kickstarter watch that at the time of filming is being heavily marketed across socials, and I don't actually have the watch in my possession. A little bit out of the normal for me. Usually I wear things for a few weeks before I post about them. And I don't really need it in this situation, and I'll explain why. First, if you like what you see as we get into the content, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, consider subscribing. If you haven't, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure quite a few of you will have thoughts, pros, cons about what I have to say, or just about the watch in general. This video is sort of a confluence of several types of videos I do, which are in my playlist. Kickstarter watches, watch reviews, movement reviews, chats with Brian, and Brian and the Grail. So it's a mix of all these different things. So there's a watch on Kickstarter, Martin Design Watches Studio, MD Watches Studio, the Connemara. The brand is based in Slovakia. It's their 7th watch, and it utilizes a movement with dual balance wheels. Now, this company has had successful campaigns in the past. People seem generally happy with the products, and the current campaign is going well, significantly over the funding hurdle. I'm no stranger to the movement or in the watch or ones like it because I reviewed and researched plenty of them as part of my Brian and the Grail series, where I had some fun considering low-cost stand-ins for my Grail watch, the Armstrong Mirrored Force Resonance, the real deal regarding resonance movements and dual balance wheels. For this occasion, I'm sporting my Armstrong Gravity Water. I'll throw up a picture or two of it. Why not? It's a big boy too. So getting to the questions and why I'm doing this video. I think it's important to consider, does this watch that's being marketed across the microbrand space, does this MD watch actually have 2 active balance wheels that affect timekeeping, which is a claim? Is resonance in play? Does it really have a superior timekeeping ability? If you read the Kickstarter campaign and all the marketing across the social platforms, you would think, yes, that's exactly what they claim repeatedly. But the true answer is no. It's none of those things. And we're going to talk about why. This is Watch Complications after all, so let's get into the details. Let me get a couple things out of the way first, though. I'm not trying to be harsh in this video or trying to sink a campaign, though it could create some drama maybe. I may get some flack, but I'll take it if it means getting people accurate information about their money spent on a watch. I really just like getting into movement detail and also making sure people are informed about what they're buying. If you spend any time around my channel or website, watchcomplications.com, you realize pretty quick I have an extremely varied interest in watches from Casio to Vacheron. And I'm about as open-minded as you can get, though I have preferences, like anyone else. But I thought a lot as I wrote out this review, if it was the right thing to do. I thought about it a lot for a few days. And I questioned myself, is what I'm doing good? Is this helpful? And the more I went through it and wrote the content, the more I realized I needed to do it. And I wasn't going to hold back. So I'm going with it. So at one point early on, when this concept from MD Watches Studio was first being shared in some online groups, I was intrigued and at one point even considered potentially buying one if it got to market. I had one issue, the misleading information being posted. This was early on, and I'll share that out. I told the owner at that point on a public forum to be explicit and very clear about what exactly the movement is and what it is not. He didn't take the advice and actually doubled down. If you look carefully at comments on posts related to this watch across social platforms now during the campaign, I'm not the only one that's picked up on this reality. If the brand was more honest about what the movement is and wasn't making outright false claims, I'd maybe be interested because, yeah, I like the design generally. It's a good low-cost stand-in for what would be a Grail watch for a lot of people, this Armstrong Mirrored Force Resonance. But given the current marketing approach, no, I'm not going to support with my money. It's fine if others do, to each their own, but what I will do is provide people with information. The movement in question is the PTS S05B. The base is the S05. Now, PTS Resources is a partner with Hangzhou Watch Company. It's based in Hong Kong with offices in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. They are a supplier, not really a movement maker. Essentially, they're a storefront for selling movements from Chinese factories, and it's been around since 1991. Let's take a quick look at the specs listed on the campaign page and a quick look at the specs listed by the supplier in their documentation. So this is straight from the horse's mouth. Let's let this sink in for a moment. We will come back to these specs as they relate to claims made in the campaign. I'm going to break this up into 3 subtopics based on questions. First, what are they claiming the watch does? Let's read the description on the campaign page.
All right, the beauty of a dual balanced watch. The double balance wheel movement is an extraordinary innovation in watchmaking due to its ability to enhance the stability of timekeeping. Essentially, the movement has 2 oscillating balance wheels as opposed to the traditional single. The function of the balance wheel is to oscillate, to keep and regulate the movement speed. It can often be influenced by factors like changes in environmental variations, which impact stability. Integrating a double balance wheel aids with reducing such influences. The movement is also more captivating for the wearer. Our dual balance movement functions by applying the bottom balance wheel to power the watch while creating sufficient oscillation to simultaneously power the top wheel. Each balance wheel is mounted on the same balance staff, so they be in sync, but they are pinned at opposite points. The role of the top wheel is not entirely decorative, though, as it provides the advantage of reducing rate variations within the overall movement. That's the main part of the claim, along with this stability. Helps to better balance and resist external physical disturbances, vibrations, giving the movement greater stability.
Is all this true? No. They're using all the descriptive language of resonance without saying the word, for good reason. It'd be a little too much on the nose or crown. See, I can make jokes too. Time and Tide has a pretty good brief history on resonance. I recommend giving it a read. I'll link it in the description below. Personally, and Time and Tide also sort of suggest agreement with my stance, I'm not even sure I'd call resonance a complication. It's really a physics principle. Though certainly the mechanics to synchronize multiple balances or create axes might be considered complications. It's even debatable how much of an impact the physics of multiple balances in close proximity has on accurate timekeeping. Same situation with tourbillons and multi-axis tourbillons, which supposedly help, negate the effects of gravity. It's cool, it's technically innovative, but it's really splitting hairs when it comes to actual effectiveness. I'm not going to give a physics lesson, but that's the reality. A single balance chronometer will do just fine for accuracy. Okay, second, what are the wheels actually doing? Well, one is active and the other is decorative. Don't let the marketing copy deceive you. I like the design, though it's heavily lifted from Arm & Strom, again the real deal regarding resonance. Other Chinese brands have done similar designs before with the movement or similar movements. For example, Reef Tiger, Binger, just look on AliExpress. I could go on. Look at my Brian and the Grail series. Sure, the design is okay. The use of the movement's okay. The choice in finishing is okay. And that's what they're really focused on here is the color palettes and the choices in finishing and brushing in certain directions, etc. If someone wants to buy it, then okay, that's their money. I even thought about it briefly, but blatant lies in marketing are off-putting in my opinion. Know what you're buying, and it's on brand owners to make sure details are clearly communicated. The first statement in their Facebook marketing is patently false, which bleeds into their second statement and so on. I'd say it's an intentional lie, or at least intentionally trying to blur the truth, especially in the Kickstarter copy. Here's a quote. Dual balance mastery featuring a mesmerizing twin balance wheel design for superior timekeeping stability. Notice the words, the terminology, and the claim being made. None of that is true. I told this to the owner. He said it was all explained in the campaign. Yeah, I read the campaign page already. It's exactly what I said. It's misleading. Sure, the watch has good aesthetics. Hey, it does look very good and people like it. The campaign is doing fine, really well. Congrats to them. But the second balance is just window dressing. It's not enhancing accuracy at all, no matter how flowery the language is, which is the claim. The design is simply set up to power both wheels. MD Watches is claiming resonance in the description without saying the word because it's not. So they can't say the literal word resonance. That's the facts. Further, I guarantee no testing went into even trying to determine one balance's impact on the other as it relates to timekeeping. If there was, you'd see a chart in the campaign, and even then I'd take it with a grain of salt. And it'd be a waste of money anyway, since one wheel is driving the other. Physics strikes again. Let me share a short clip about a new balance wheel and the kind of effort and technical sophistication that goes into designing a new balance. It's not easy, and it's not something that comes at a low price point.
So there's a reason that so many brands use existing balance wheels, because they're tried and tested. There have been millions of them made. Like everyone knows the calculations for them, that how they fit within the rest of the movement, that kind of thing. So we kind of knew we were undertaking something that wasn't very common, and that it would be tricky. So we were very conscious of that from the start. So it wasn't really like a surprise, but it was as hard as we thought it would be. So there's like 3 or 4 manufacturers in Switzerland that do the balance wheel and hairspring. And so we kind of went to one of those and we told them what we like, the specifications, how we wanted it to look. And then they have all the knowledge of the actual manufacturing side of it and all the kind of engineering aspects of it. So we kind of worked with them on that, because that was not something we could do on our own. Working out all the kind of the inertial calculations and all that kind of stuff is very, very specialized.
Now, going back to the specs, 2 facts are particularly telling about what's actually going on. It's clear if you just look at the specs and you kind of know watches fairly well what's going on. But both of these factors are fairly outside the norm. The power reserve is about 32 hours. Now, I'm going to get to other reviews on the watch in a moment, but one reviewer mentioned, quote, "That seems an odd reserve and I haven't seen that exact number before," but then just moves on. Here's why it's 32 hours, not a typical 38 or 42 hours or such. It's because the movement setup is to drive the secondary decorative wheel in sync with no added benefit of accuracy. It's simply a larger than normal drain on the mainspring. You're pulling 2 carts with 1 horse. It's going to get tired faster than 2 horses with 1 cart each. Simple fact. There's a reason resonance watches are rare and expensive, and this new watch here doesn't have some new innovation as they claim. It's new, precision engineering that enables it to sell for $300 or $400. Another claim that they make. No. 3. Is it superior timekeeping? That's a claim they make. Let's look at the other quite abnormal spec. Accuracy rated is -45 to +45 seconds a day. Anyone into mechanical watches that has anything even remotely reasonable, from Seiko, Miyota, NH movements, Swiss makers, German makers, you name it, even many Chinese movements, it's quite outside the norm, like horribly inaccurate, we'll call it. Why? Averages and decent, very affordable movements are around ±20 seconds a day. Really good ones, ±10. Then you start getting down in single digits, both on the minus and the plus side, and chronometer status. Again, the marketing says, quote, "A better balance and resist external physical disturbances and vibrations, giving the movement greater stability." Yet I get told, quote, "I'm not claiming resonance. You just invoked physics and claimed resonance." Quote, "It is a reliable, precision-made movement." Quote, "The double balance wheel movement is an extraordinary innovation in watchmaking due to its ability to enhance the stability of timekeeping." Quote, "Dual balance mastery featuring a mesmerizing twin balance wheel design for superior timekeeping stability." Quote, "Precision engineering ensuring accuracy and reliability." Need I go on? Like, give me a break. -45 to +45 seconds a day. Can it be better regulated? Probably, but the base rating tells exactly what the mechanics are and are not, and they are not what the claims suggest. Look, I have zero problem with this movement being used in this watch, but for the palette fork's sake, don't mislead people about what it is. Just put forward what you chose and why. It's fine. People would still like it, probably, but don't get fancy with flowery, false language to muddy up the waters. It's even more interesting when the supplier itself, PTS Resources, markets the base as, quote, "intimate tourbillons," which they aren't. I won't even go down that road. Anyway, resonance or any sort of physics intended to improve accuracy, which we've already said is a bit debatable, requires independent balances, independently regulated, and they will naturally get out of sync. And then a resync is essentially an average, potentially more accurate timekeeping. The mechanics behind synchronization are quite complex, rare, and don't happen for $300. Again, you can read more about that in the article I linked. The one I'm most familiar with is the Armin Strom, since that's a grail for me. Researched it a ton, though it's quite a reach. after the Daytona, but they have a clutch mechanism to resync the balances, which are running independently with independent trains. Regulating one balance to a certain point of accuracy has diminishing returns. This goes back to that short clip I showed about balance wheel design in the interview. So regulating one balance to a certain point of accuracy has diminishing returns on time spent, and time is money. I know, I've regulated hundreds of watches. Regulating two balances with the intent of resonance is not for the faint of heart. Just like the price tags of the FP Journe and Armstrong, which are legit attempts at resonance. Like I said, the exact word is never used in the marketing, but they make all the claims, promises, and describe the watch as if that's what it is. It's also interesting that the brand Indie Watches Studio started out with some, I'll say, more unique designs, but the last two campaigns are mostly lifted from FP Journe and Armstrong, respectively. Not going to get into that aspect, but it's certainly an intentional choice to the perceived market. That part doesn't personally bother me as much since there is some reasonable derivation, but it's also worth mentioning. Now that we've covered those three big picture questions, what are other reviewers saying? Well, just like brand owners have a responsibility to be honest and clear about their designs, reviewers, YouTubers, in my estimation, have a responsibility to hold brands accountable. No one likes to potentially burn bridges, but there's nothing wrong with calling it like you see it, especially when it's objective. With so many aspects of watches being subjective, reviews can lose their way when it comes to the objective parts. Perhaps I've done that before, though I try to intentionally avoid doing so, but brand owners know this about me. I'll say exactly what I think and know. If you want to send me a watch, I'll review it and I'll give you exactly what I think. But that builds trust. The two videos posted on the campaign page, which had prototypes review, were by a couple of fairly common microbrand reviewers that have some following amongst that community. And a lot of that is driven by Facebook groups. I've never done a sort of review of other reviews, but I think it helps in this specific situation since they're part of the campaign marketing. So I want to give a short recap of each review, what they pointed out, what they missed. And this isn't to knock on these guys. They're just doing their thing. I'm sure they're nice people. I hope their channels keep doing well. Nothing against them. I'm sure they're just trying to help out brands and such. But I'm trying to help out people spending money on watches. And if they want to spend the money, then cool, fine. At least know what it really is. And the truth shouldn't hurt that much, as far as I'm concerned. Also note, I watched both reviews in their entirety multiple times just to make sure I wasn't missing something. As a side note, the Oracle Time article is just a summary and doesn't really impart any additional info. So first, Jason, the watch guy. Third time dealing with indie watches, said it's unlike anything he's seen on the market before. That is, it's, quote, insane. So my recommendation would be to look a tad harder. These dual flywheel movements have been around quite a while. A Chinese brand have used them in some way, usually with also blatantly false marketing. The most common one is calling them tourbillons, which just like the supplier does. He mentions, quote, incredible casing. Even with a crown at 6, which is rightly mentioned by both reviewers as an issue, but okay, so we got a crown at 6, hard to get to, hard to turn, a close to 50 millimeter lug to lug and over 13 millimeter height. Okay, you're losing me here. Some people like large watches. Again, that's all well and good, but not sure I'd be touting this combination of factors as incredible casing. I start to question the sincerity of the review at that point. Now, Jason does mention that he also sees the high horology notes from FP Journe and Armstrong. Good for picking up on that. But the budget price being touted means something, especially compared to the mechanics. He says it's not something we see on the budget market. Again, I suggest looking around. You'll find them. Just don't buy any of them. I tried that before just to look for fun. And one was returned and the other resold, or maybe I gave it away in a giveaway. Not worth it. The last thing I'll mention about the first review, and I'm saying it now because it connects to the second review, is neither reviewer even remotely mentioned the accuracy. Even though it's published in the campaign, it's on the informational page from the supplier. But neither reviewer even remotely mentioned the accuracy nor addressed the claims made all over the materials. Nothing, nada. Silence says a lot. And if it wasn't intentional, well, hopefully these are things to watch for in other watches to be reviewed by these guys who again, microbranders like them, and hey, I'm a huge fan of microbrands. Look back across my channel. I mean, I'm the US-based watchmaker for Vario, an awesome and quite successful microbrand. But let's do better at giving people the truth. Shy away from being too nice when it isn't warranted. That's one of the hardest things about reviewing watches, but it's a philosophy I've stuck to, and let the screws fall where they may. Okay, review 2 by Jonathan T. Watches, another reasonably popular reviewer in the microbrand space. Also claims the movement is a first for him. Okay, again, I get it, but it's out there a lot, and similar ones. Jonathan was the one that mentioned the power reserve of 32 hours being odd, like I alluded to earlier, but leaves it at that. He mentions the case back is adding to the height and could be thinner, but the reality of this movement is that it's a 34.5 millimeter diameter and a 6.5 millimeter height. It is a hefty movement. I deal with this reality all the time because a big part of my niche is that I make custom holders and spacers to fit particular movements to particular cases. If I have a movement that's almost 35 millimeter diameter and 6.5 millimeter height, there's only so many cases that can go into. It's a big case. A little to be done about that via a caseback redesign. Again, a deeper review of the specs would have made that clear. I agree with his sentiment that the design is attractive, but it's big. He says it's massive on the wrist, and yep, I agree, especially seeing it on his wrist in the video. You know, one statement I often hear with these dual balance movements anytime they pop up, and I heard it in the review a couple times, which in one respect is true, but also somewhat feeds the misconception that the balances are, quote, competing, maybe competing for visual attention, but they aren't doing any real play off of each other regarding timekeeping, unless you're talking about competing for mainspring power. You know, Jonathan did have some good ideas around legibility, but also said this design was, quote, out of the box, a, quote, reimagining. It's a bit cliche in the language, in the commentary, and not true. The design is very familiar, as we've already mentioned a few times, both high and low brands. So anyway, I wish the brand owner had gone with clarity and honesty in the campaign. I would have liked to consider taking a closer look at it, though I'm not sure it could sneak in some risk time given the size and what it is internally, and with the current marketing approach, to me, that's intentionally deceiving and in my estimation, flat out lies. So it's a big no for me. And yeah, the watch itself is big. There it is. Let's check out. Look, I don't like being the bad guy. Well, okay, maybe sometimes. But I reiterate, I see my role as a reviewer and maker to call it like I see it. Trust is important. I tried to encourage the owner months ago to be really clear with customers about the movement. He said he's not promoting resonance, but that is exactly what the description suggests in the campaign on socials, and then other additional claims on top of that. And just because the exact word isn't used doesn't mean the claims are any less meaningful. Stay informed, friends. Hope you found the video helpful. Even if you weren't looking into this watch, perhaps you learned something new. That's what I try to give to the community. Let's learn things new together. And again, just stay informed. Let me know how you feel in the comments. I can't really wait to talk to you about something actually really new and innovative next week. For now, I'm out.